Welcome to Aunty K's, your favorite radical queer indigenous auntie, bringing you tarot every day. Hi folks, this is Aunty K, and welcome to another episode of Tarot Study Buddy, where I unpack the tarot readings you have done for yourself that you are struggling with. And you know, when it comes to our personal readings, it can be difficult sometimes to unpack the most difficult messages, the things we're most struggling to look at for ourselves. And that can be true whether you're a tarot beginner or a tarot professional. In today's study buddy, our friend used AP Astrology's Clear Direction Mercury Direct Spread. And you can follow AP Astrology on Instagram and also on Patreon. And so we're going to take a look at this spread today, which was for Mercury coming direct. Mercury came direct just the other day, as did Jupiter. And we're going to start coming out of the shadows of those retrogrades and finding the clarity and the understanding and the forward movement that direct action brings after that trip backwards to revisit lessons. All right. And so let's get into the spread. Like, comment, and subscribe. Also, check out my Patreon and check out my Discord. I deliver Patreon content through Discord, but I also have a public Discord channel. But there is special Patreon-only content in my Discord also, and I'm going to talk more about that at the end. Let's get into the spread. All right, so as I said, this is a spread looking for clear direction from Mercury coming direct from its time in retrograde. And the first question up is, what do I need to know right now? And the card pulled is the Eight of Cups. Our friend used the Anima Mundi deck. I don't really have a deck I felt was all that similar, so I decided to use Next World Tarot, and let's really draw on the imagery and expression in the cards for some help and direction here. The next question is, where could I use more clarity? And our friend pulled the Eight of Pence. Yes, there's an 8 pattern we're going to see here. Third, how can I gain more clarity? And we have the 8 of Wands. The next one is, what outcome awaits? The 8 of Swords. Okay, and then the shadow card is part of the spread, and what it really ties these 8s together. Shadow, what will help me? The Hermit. Okay. So then we got all the 8s, and then we didn't get Strength, but the Hermit is an important and key factor in reading this spread, and we are very, very much going to get to that. Okay. Let's get into this. So my friend says, what do I need to know right now? 8 of Cups. Leave behind all the narratives of who I thought I was. And the key word that Christy C. Rode gives us in the Next World Tarot is abandon. All right. So we are abandoning old narratives. We're not just moving on. We're really leaving them behind. And I also think when I look at this card about a reckless abandon, more so perhaps than other 8 of Cups, but that idea of reckless abandon helps us with moving on in the 8 of Cups to just be like, that reckless abandon is, I'm not looking back. They're jumping. There's no point in looking back. They're jumping off a cliff in a bike. They're jumping off a cliff in a bike. There's no point to looking back. This is a reckless abandon. And since we're also going to see the Wands energy come up here, that is an important energy to be thinking about. How could I use more clarity? Eight of Pence, in discerning my purpose, and in discerning my purpose. So I think in discerning purpose, part of what needs to happen is this needs to be pulled apart more and expanded on. And sometimes when you're struggling with unpacking a spread, we do tend to keep it short. When it's short because you're struggling with it, that's a time to try and add more words. If you're writing them, you can take them out later. Try adding more words. So value. We see value in the Eight of Pence also. Where could I use more clarity in leaving behind old narratives of who I thought I was? By discerning my purpose and my value. Discerning my value. Your purpose is going to be tied to how you value yourself, where you see yourself as valuable. That is a large part of where your purpose lies, and that can really help you, recklessly abandon who you were and move in new narratives of who you see yourself as via what you value about yourself, the areas you want to grow and increase and work on, because you see these as valuable aspects of yourself. One thing to not a trap to not fall into in this, and that could get you stuck, which we see we need energy from this. And then the next card is going to be the Eight of Wands. There needs to be energy. So don't get stuck in your value being tied completely to productivity. Okay. That is an area you could get stuck. And since we've got all the eights and then the Hermit come up, there's a journey to be going on. So being careful not to get stuck anywhere is going to be important. All right. 3, how can I gain more clarity in leaving behind these old narratives of who I thought I was, and in discerning my value and purpose as I move towards these new narratives? How can I gain more clarity? 8 of Wands, move quick when inspiration arises. This might help me figure this out, might help gain clarity. Okay. Moving quickly when inspiration arises is going to help, because actually what this demands here is action. That's one of the things about the wands. Yes, they're about inspiration. They're also about passion. So we want to be passionate about the value to help us move. Okay, so the 8 of Wands demands an action. This is how this becomes more than just a tarot reading that stays on the page in your journal and does nothing. You're not sure where to do. The 8 of Wands is where you are going to take action. So one of the things you need to ask yourself is, how am I going to physically move forward, taking action, now that I'm feeling inspired by this spread, to leave behind old narratives of who I thought I was, in discerning my purpose and value of how I see myself and moving forward in that. So you want to take actions, and some of those can be small and simple actions. Change your profile pictures on your social media, update your bios in your social media, at work, in your emails, elsewhere, to help give yourself that new image of oh, I'm holding up the wrong card there. I'm giving away where I'm going with this. I don't know how long I've done that. We'll see. Okay. So you have to take physical actions. We have this action that is moving forward, and we're going to come up to the 7 or the 8 of Swords, who's facing forward, looking with one eye out at what's going on. So do those small updatey things. Take a look around your home. Are the things in it supporting what you value about who you are, including make sure you value your downtime, your joy time, your silly and humorous and frivolous times. Also do value those. But think of small things and big things that involve taking action and leaving behind these old narratives. So when you think about these old narratives, what are some of the things in your life that your old narratives support? And what action can you take to physically change the reality of that so that, you know, your lived experience moving forward supports your new narrative of yourself? This card requires you sitting down and making checklists and to-do lists and getting to work. This is the action card. This is where the homework in the spread lies. All right. What outcome awaits? Actually, our friend didn't answer this card, so we are going to come right back to it. The next question was the shadow card. What will help me overall? And it's the hermit. Okay. Honest introspection may be helpful overall. Okay, it is. But because that's something the hermit does, and that's going to help all these other things. But also, you're actively moving and getting things done in these cards. You're moving towards something. The only 8 not in this spread is strength. You already got the strength. This is the journey to become the hermit. So let's put this one in here. This is the journey to become the hermit. You change your narratives. You figure out what it is you value about yourself. You take the actions to get that done. And it's those actions that ultimately free you from the old narratives and gives you that final break. Okay? The actions is what breaks you from those old narratives and gives you the final break. And when you do that, you are ready for awareness. What helps you overall? It helps you finish off this journey of the 8s because you come to awareness in the hermit in 9. Okay? So let's take a look at the 8 of Swords and the hermit. Okay? I want it to be in order for me and come into order for you. Which means I do this now. I see I show you spreads in the wrong direction all the time. Okay. I want to do it this way so they're looking. So you start at the 7 of Swords, right? And in the 7 of Swords, it's about choice. And you're making these choices. There's a lot of imposter syndrome in the 7 of Swords. And we see this 7 of Swords, you know, building themselves up and trying to overcome that imposter syndrome and create an identity. And those attempts, along with that imposter syndrome, leave you feeling bound up, you know, and you know you have to look at it, and you have to pull off the bandages that, you know, part of creating this identity was meant to hold together. But, you know, it did. It was a good Band-Aid. It's now time to pull them off. And you're worried and peeking at the 9 because, you know, there's this worry, there's this concern that it's going to hurt when you pull off these bandages. After all, what waits on the other side of pulling off these bandages and these blinders is the 9 of Swords, despair. But let's take a look at her. Yeah, the landscape is barren. It's harsh. It's despair, but, you know, she's cool. She's cool. She's okay with all this. Because awareness of the 9 means that as she sits here in this moment of despair, having ripped off those bandages, she knows that this cycle is almost complete. This is 9. 10 comes next. And she's ready for that. The despair is minimal compared to the overall awareness and the relief that awareness and knowing that clarity brings. Yeah, it's going to be harsh to pull it off, but the clarity is worth it. The clarity is worth it. And you won't need this built-up identity anymore, because in awareness, you just are the self. Let's look at it a little bit more. Okay, 7, 8, 9, the Chariot. Because we're moving towards awareness and the Hermit here in this spread. The Chariot was the will that it took to say, I'm just going to build up identity so that I have what it is I need, the drive I need, the sense of self that I need to move forward. Because I am pulling my willpower out here from the bottom. I'm not staying where I am. I am going forward. Because I'm ready for strength. It's time. I am ready for strength. Remember, this is what's missing from the spread is, you know, because it's not actually missing. It's described in the collection of 8s. All the 8s are there. The story of strength is there. So there's 2 ways to do numerology in tarot. In numerology, the equivalent of the match of 8 would be 17. 7 plus 1 equals 8. But also another way of looking at it that's unique to tarot is 18 is also the continuation of the story of 8. Because we're looking at the 8 that's at the end of it. The 1 just tells us that we're in the next cycle of it. And actually, in this particular case, the messages of the moon and the star are fairly similar. We're going to use the moon. Because we're talking about clarity, we're going to use the moon. The next part in the growth of strength from the Chariot, you've moved forward and you understand your strength. You believe that you have it now because you used it to move that Chariot forward. And the next aspect of it that's going to pull you into the Hermit is the moon. And that's, intuition, that's clarity, that's knowing that it's not, that's letting go of imposter syndrome. That's that faith of self, that what you, that trust in yourself that, yeah, I can do this. Yes, these are my values. Yes, I'm going to, move towards this. I am going to embody this right now, here today. And I can move beyond imposter syndrome because I have faith in myself now. I have faith in myself now, and I can look up and see past the delusions I might hope to see in the moon and see instead that intuition. Remember, the moon isn't just simply illusion and falseness. That is that is an option in the moon, but a healthy expression of the moon is that clarity to see intuition. And that's why the moon is so strong in the high priestess, who, sees beyond, sees into the darkness. The moon asks us to see past our illusions, be they fears or, the falsehoods we build up to protect our fears, and see through the gentle light of the moon, intuition, which takes much of us pulling from what's in us. And so when this strength becomes this faith in ourself, then we are ready to move on to 9, the hermit, who, is they sit in awareness, and they have a confidence. They are, what's the word I'm looking for? I don't know the word I'm looking for at the moment, but they are confident. They are capable. They believe in themselves. They don't need, they're past imposter syndrome, because imposter syndrome is a fear of how others are going to view you in comparison to the identity you're claiming. At the hermit, you've moved past imposter syndrome, and you know that your only identity is the identity you claim, regardless of others. And this can take, we often think about the hermit as going in on themselves, being independent, introspective, and yes, all of that is part of this, of being, enough for yourself. Enough for yourself. That's the lesson here. That's what you gain from this. So that's the overall thing that will help you through all of this. And also is what you gain is being enough for yourself. And when you're enough for yourself, you can take off these blinders. You aren't going to be afraid, and you're not going to be afraid of what you lose in letting go of the identity you created previously. Also, part of being enough for yourself knows that you don't need to forgive yourself for your previous identity. It was a stepping stone. It was part along the way of the journey. And even though there was imposter syndrome issues in it at that time, letting go of that and knowing that you are enough doesn't mean that you come out of it being like, well, now I no longer am an imposter. You always were. This is where you understand it, where you understand you were always enough. And that's part of that old narratives. That's the main old narrative we're leaving behind, is that imposter syndrome, that lack of self-trust and lack of self-faith. And when you 8 of Wands it, these are I'm ready to move on. I got it. I'm ready to move on. You can define what it is you value about yourself. And, that's going to be a fairly easy step. But this is where you put it all into action. All right. So that is part of this journey that makes you realize you never were an imposter. You can tear off these bandages, because you're ready for all this, because you were strong. You were strong. You had willpower. You gained strength. You understood strength. You embodied strength. And now you're enough. Okay? So what really helped with that reading was not pulling clarifying cards, but pulling the rest of the story in. What comes before and after? What card isn't present? What's the full story here behind the Eight of Swords, 7, 8, 9? And especially when we're seeing either progressions, 7, 8, 9, regressions, 9, 8, 7, or like them all coming out, 8, 8, 8, 8. When we're seeing that, we want to pull in the rest of the story. Similarly, if you pull a spread and you have, like, say, 3 8s, you want to pull that 8 that didn't come out of the deck, that missing 8 in, because that's a key aspect of the story. It's not being there makes it significant, right? Just like in this spread, what was significant was the card that wasn't there, strength. We had all the 8s telling the story of strength in the moon. And then we had 9, the hermit. Okay? And so pulling in the rest of the story is a really helpful way to unpack that. When I'm reading for myself or for clients, I will sometimes physically pull out the other cards to complete the story, or knowing them in my head, I will reference them when I'm reading the cards. I'm more likely to do that reference in my head for a client than shuffle through a deck looking for a specific card. But certainly when I have all the time in the world to sit there quietly looking through a deck of cards, I will do that for myself. I do recommend you doing that for yourself also. Tips like this are tips that are in my coffee table tarot spread book that I am in the process of writing. And you can follow along with the development of the coffee table tarot spread book that I am creating on Patreon. And all the benefits are listed through my Discord. And that's up here. There is Patreon only content. There's early access content where you will see spreads or tips and hints like the one here. You can become a patron in a variety of different ways. One is through Tarot Journal group chat, where a lot of the spreads that ended up making it into the coffee table tarot spread book are spreads that were first developed in Tarot Journal group chat. And, Study Buddy has helped me with the creation of the coffee table tarot spread book also, because I have to really sit and think about what are the hints I use, what are the tricks I use when I'm unpacking a reading, so that I can explain it to others. And certainly those sorts of hints that I've brought up in Study Buddy are also going to be in the coffee table tarot spread book. So why is it a coffee table book? Have you ever had let's pretend this is a journal, but let's pretend it's a tarot spread book. And you're here and you're doing your spread and you got to pull it down to write in your journal or shuffle the cards. Well, the reason I'm doing a coffee table book for a tarot spread book is because they're big, they're heavy, they stay open when you lay them down, especially with the weight of those hard covers. And with the hard covers of a coffee table book, it helps it stay open, and they're really big, so you can lay out your tarot cards right there on the book, right where the questions are, right where the hints and tips all are for you, and on a nice, beautiful background, largely of collage art. And it will be sized up to hold fairly average tarot cards. Next World Tarot won't really fit, especially for the bigger spreads, but the majority of your tarot decks will fit on the coffee table tarot spread book. So please check all that stuff out. I do look forward to speaking with all of you via comments And so certainly join my Discord where we can interact, and I can get your insights and thoughts on this. And there are more Spill the Tarot teas coming up. The next one is going to be in November. So they are still coming. They're just coming slowly. They're big to schedule because, as you've seen, most of them are about an hour, and it usually takes us 2 hours to film those. So it's a big chunk of people's day to book them in for, and then there's the editing. So there is more of those coming. Again, like, comment, and subscribe. Check out all my other socials, and I look forward to interacting with all of you soon. See you later, folks.